Well, we have been doing some segments here over the last several weeks on the program, Brian, about from my files, from, that I've been pulling out of the drawers here at the castle and my voluminous paperwork. And we've been focusing on the TNA agent reports that I was instructed to give and praise to the heavens for over some of the TNA TV pay-per-view and the TV tapings in was it August of 2009, leading into September. And then last week, we finally got up to the punchline is where I did everything they asked me to do, and then they called me up and fired me. And it has come to find out because, and we call him Russo, so we don't confuse anybody. But our friend Shitstain had talked Dixie into bringing in Ed Ferrara. And then they slandered me on the internet from an unnamed source. And then I asked our friend Terry Taylor, your friend of mine, for clarification on that it was untrue. And then an uncredited insider said, no, it's not true. And I said, okay, I'll have to start defending myself. And that's where we left it last week. And, I got to be honest, so many people have been sending us comments and stuff on this and just enjoying it because even though some of the people are saying, even though we heard the story before, it's, we're hearing new stuff with you reading the agent reports or whatever, but it's more fun than the current stuff. And this is 15 years ago. Some of the people listening to us, Brian, may not have been concentrating on all this shit 15 years ago. I've come to find out. I just take it. I'm like, oh, everybody knows that. But not me, sir. I was 6. Have you started to experience that people are starting to be too young to know the things that you think that everybody knows?
Well, I definitely think there's been an influx of a new fan base over the last 10 years. You've had a lot of people enter the wrestling fandom.
The cult.
And yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of people who don't know wrestling before a certain point, or they only know WWE before a certain point, and even that's limited. But again, a lot of this stuff, it feels like it's yesterday, but it's a long time. I mean, we're 25 years into the century.
It feels like yesterday, but it was long ago. Janie was lovely. She was the queen of mine. I'm sorry.
It's 25 years into the century, and sometimes it doesn't feel like it.
Holy shit, we still haven't any better along than this. Boy, this one's going to be a fucking waste, but nevertheless. So anyway, we were at the point where, okay, here we go. And a lot of people I've referred to it, and people have heard the stories from shoot interviews or whatever, but the letter that I sent to the email, I should say, using correct terminology, that I sent to Terry Taylor, as a Stooge test that led to getting a very testy response from TNA's legal team of the moment. I don't know who the fuck they were. We'll find out here in a second.
Hey, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
You bring up that there's a lot of stuff that the fans, newer fans may not know. A lot of them may not understand or know what a Stooge test is. You may have to explain that.
Well, I will as we get there. But in general, a Stooge in wrestling is a little kind of the same thing as a stooge in show business. The Three Stooges started out as Ted Healy's fucking guys that you stupid idiots that tagged around with him and got slapped, right? And then they figured out he was a drunk and they could do it without him. But a stooge is also somebody who will go and stooge on you to the office. They will tell they're tattletales. They're tattletales. And that's what a stooge is. And that's why some people have traditionally kept positions in various offices, regional or national, that some people didn't understand why that they were keeping because they were stooges.
Paul Jones.
Well, and sometimes, in some cases, especially with Vince, people were actually paid to be stooges and it was understood, but there was an element of professionalism that they would conduct their stooginess with, and they wouldn't go out of their way to fuck with the boys. And others potentially would. Anyhow, So I should again make the point that that was that I did some interviews and I was in Ring of Honor and getting, some interviews with websites. So I made a point of clarifying that it all became clear what happened. And they had to slander me and plant a phony story so that they wouldn't be called idiots on the internet when everybody figured out what actually happened. So I grabbed the file because here's the thing I remembered. Hold on. There we go. That's the letter. I'm sorry. I remembered that I had gotten this letter, obviously, because that was one of the most fun things ever of my life was, getting a letter from a law firm telling me that Vince Russo experienced extreme fear because of me. So, I had this right here in the file, but I didn't remember. I got a couple of other emails before we get to this point, and I wanted to read these. I don't think that this gentleman would mind being quoted because the last time that I heard he had departed from TNA because they offended him with the hard work that he had put in and the way that they treated him. Now, maybe that was certainly under the previous administration and the Canadian folks, but I don't know where Dave Sahadi is these days. But this was the director of the television show. The Monday morning after the Sunday night that I didn't show up at the pay-per-view, I believe this was, and they found out I wasn't there, and guess who was? Ed Ferrara. Dave Sahadi said, "Hi, Jim, let me get right to the point. I miss you. I'm not sure what the reasons are for your release, but damn, you were such a tremendous asset to me and everyone in the production truck. I have so much professional respect for you and always admired both your passion and your expertise. You are a great teacher. There's a void in the truck caused by your absence." So the the director of the program was clearly ready to get rid of me, right? What the fuck? We've talked about that I was trying to help. And see, this is what they were doing because they were on national television, but it's still, even then, Dixie's daddy didn't have nowhere near the amount of money Tony's daddy do. And they were still trying to save money. Dave Sahadi, for the people who might not know who he is, Brian, the best thing I can think of is in the 90s, in the Attitude Era, the WWF pay-per-views, when they started having those cold opens with the dramatic voiceover and kind of an NFL type of delivery, NFL films, and the really intricate video pieces and packages that they showed. You remember those, right?
Oh, of course.
Well, Dave Sahadi is the one. He wrote the voiceovers. He produced the pieces. He did. I'm going to shortchange him, but like every goddamn job in the television production department and studio in Stamford, shooting stuff on location, whatever. And then he had left there, and they were lucky enough to get him because Jeff had a relationship with him when he was up there, etc. And he did great work for them. But then, because they were still budget conscious at that point because of, the creative causing the pay-per-views never to make any money. So they had a director named Tim Walbert who would do the show part of the year, but he had to take off because he did Major League Baseball. He was actually doing them a favor, by doing their show because he liked wrestling. But they couldn't pay like Major League Baseball. So what did they tell fucking Sahadi? Okay, we want you to direct. The one thing he's never done in this production field is actually sit in a director's chair. So that's why the producer of the match ideally will be sitting a short distance behind. I know you can communicate in people's ears, but it's goddamn better if you're talking to somebody instead of the IFB, if you're actually speaking to somebody. The match producer is trying to make sure the director doesn't miss anything that's going to happen in the match. In our truck, Dutch might be a couple of rows back behind me. He's watching the monitor, listening to the commentary that we're laying down live, and he's feeding shit to Mike Tenay and Don West. Don't forget the guy lost his leg in seg 1. He's pissed about it, whatever. And I was able to help David when he first started directing because either I would have had the match and know where it was going, or it would have been told to me, or in some cases, I would like if I knew if they were doing what they had called to do in the match, then I could say, Dave, watch out, dipshit's going to do a dive out of the ring, camera left in about 15 seconds. He's setting it, and he knows where he's going. He's going to just dive out of there for no fucking reason. But at least the goddamn director can shoot it. Or other times, I just, okay, they're on their own, which meant they're just doing shit that nobody talked about. But then I would just watch the hard camera ISO on the monitor in the truck where I could see everybody, and I would know about what they were doing, and just knowing what wrestling looked like. If somebody was climbing to the top rope on the other side of the ring, they were setting something up so I could help call it for him. And he appreciated that, right? So we established that there was no problems with me and the production end. I think we've established that, right? But people might be wondering, well, what about the regular office and or people on the talent roster? Because this guy, I'm not even going to call his name because I haven't heard it in a long time, but I might be burying him. He might be doing something somewhere. But he was one of the referees and also worked doing office stuff, paperwork, and some with television. And he wrote me an email that I printed out. Please allow me to extend to you my deepest regrets and my utter disgust about your recent termination. I won't pretend to say that I fully understand the situation, but I believe the TNA will be forever diminished by your absence. From my point of view, you always stood for what was right for the product. Your agenda was to advance the company, not yourself. And no TNA agent has ever put forth the time and effort into doing the job the way it needs to be done like you have. You have the respect of the locker room and the production crew. So it wasn't the locker room, it wasn't the production crew, and it wasn't really anybody else in the office. It was this one cancerous boil that would not leave things alone. And Brian, I left out one thing. I said, do you have any comments about this before I drone on further?
No, and obviously it wasn't the office in terms of Terry Taylor, because after you sent in your last report, he told you it was terrific. It was great. It was exactly what they needed.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We need to hear things like this, right? But there's one cancerous boil. And that's the kind of communication I got from everybody else. And I had also forgot to mention last week when I was talking about the situation with the last day's production meeting. That was the day that I actually beforehand spoke to him in a private, personal setting in a hallway for like 2 minutes for the first time in 3 years. And I said to him, look, you and me, we've had this thing and everybody knows, and it's never going to change. But we don't have to be best friends. The team is in need. Jeff is gone. Dutch is gone. We don't need to let this thing go belly up. I will help you. That's an exact quote. I will help you. And for the first time and the only time in 3 years, I shook his hand. And ever that day and that taping session, I've never seen a son of a bitch again. But so that is the preface to the final letter that I sent to Terry Taylor. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's not. I forgot. I found this one too. I apologize for giving you false hope, Brian.
No apologies necessary.
But this, because you know Tommy Fierro.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, Tommy Fierro knew a guy. He knew it, because he's from Jersey.
That sounds
so
just like Tommy Fierro that I remember.
Like, I know a fucking guy. But the Sun newspaper website, and boy, we've been getting emails saying a fucking Sun over there. It's got the reputation of the National Enquirer. But Tommy knew one of the wrestling fan people that worked with or wrote for the Sun. And I haven't heard that. He used to do a website, not a website, but an online newsletter also. Hadn't heard his name in years. Mike Aldrin. Sorry if I'm burying you here, Mike. But basically, he says, Tommy, everything I'm about to tell you is off the record, but this was 2009. I trust both of you enough to keep it that way, but me too. Well, sorry, Mike. As of Sunday night, I stopped writing for the Sun. And they actually had a blow up at the Sun, possibly because of this, because a decision was made from high above that their pro wrestling section would now be interviews, photos, and DVD reviews only, no news and gossip. WWE and TNA were pissed off with leaks and threatened to withdraw interview access, photos, free tickets, DVDs, and all expenses paid overseas trips to pay-per-views.
Whoa.
They were bringing some stooge from both companies, from the Sun, because this was early on in this internet publicity thing. And the Sun had some type of name recognition over here from being around for a while as a British newspaper, right? So anyway, he says, regarding the Jim Cornette story, this was the deal, which I understand Jim is keen to get to the bottom of. I love the way the British phrase things. 24 hours before the story broke, and without doubt before Terry Taylor called Jim, I was tipped off by someone inside TNA that Jim was going to be let go. They didn't say why, but indicated that all would become clear at the pay-per-view. The story broke and Jim became headline news. We received an email from the, quote, senior industry source claiming Jim was a raving lunatic and went all Jack Torrance on Russo over the Eric Young deal. So, sounding plausible, and based on this source giving us accurate information in the past, again, they did a good job of picking we ran that story quoting said source, senior industry source. TNA were aware, but nobody from the office refuted the story at that time. And before I'd written a letter to Terry that I read last week. And folks, if you're at this point going, what the fuck, I should have caught up, it's all on the YouTube channel if you don't want to take the time to listen to the previous podcast. So a day or two later, TNA called and refuted the story. Stephen Godfrey, I haven't heard that name in ages. He was one of these that Dixie would hire these just out of college kids with these 14-year-old faces and put them in public relations or event promotion or marketing. And I had people, when I promoted Louisville, one of her promotions people from the office in Nashville, who fucking got the building here, said, what is that, a 12-year-old girl? What? It's just, anyway, Stephen Godfrey sent us a statement, which I understand came from Terry Taylor and approved by Dixie Carter. But remember, neither one of those people put their name on it. Then that was a TNA insider. And then he says, finally, Ed Ferrara showed up at the pay-per-view and all became clear. So what happened to my understanding of Russo had talked Dixie into giving Ferrara a job, and to make that happen, certain people had to be removed from the picture. So anyway, that's the setup for the next letter I wrote to Terry Taylor. I will take a small drink of Sprite while you comment on same as to whether or not that I've bored everyone or set a tantalizing precedent for what's about to come.
It's just amazing to hear we are 10 years after all the problems that WCW had from a creative standpoint directly due to Ferrara and Russo, and he somehow sold Dixie. Again, no one's there to run interference. You were the last barrier. But he sold her on the idea that, I'm assuming, what will make things better, what will turn things around, what will give us the show we need, will be this guy working with me again. That's crazy.
And that's why I was a bit tepid for a while, even at Jeff, because Jeff's the one that called me and said, don't let him go too far. So I actually break down finally and shake hands with the son of a bitch. It's like, I'll work with you. I'll help you. And all for naught, because I'm trying to do Jeff a fucking favor. So anyway, the reason I said this was a Stooge test, it's nothing official. You can just do things in different ways to find out whether somebody is on your side or on somebody else's side or just caught in the middle and he is a victim of circumstance. And I've done this with a couple of people a couple of times, and always with the results I kind of thought I was going to get. But in this case, I just gotten, as I said, my website and just started doing email in 2009. And this was March 20th of 2010. I had been trying to find something on this new Fancy Dan email thing that I was doing. And I came across Terry's last email to me. And you remember what? James E. You're one of my favorite. Oh, this was after they sent me a check for the tapings I was booked on the following weekend that they fired me for. They graciously sent me a check for that. So I acknowledge that I got it. James E., you're one of my favorite people. I already miss you and the French fries. Because every day after the production meeting, when I went over and got the cheesesteak and the French fries, Terry Taylor who was on a diet, but would eat a few of my French fries. As always, please give the lovely Sin my fondest regards and let's stay in touch. I'm certain we'll work together again and I'm looking forward to it. Your friend, Terry, who actually this is 2010, 27 years before that. Terry Taylor, I let sleep on my couch in Georgia for a couple days when he was a young aspiring rookie wrestler and I was actually he wasn't even a rookie. I was a rookie. He'd been in the business for like 5 years at that point. I had the apartment. He's sleeping on my couch. Anyhow, so I read that email and I said, you know what? Here's the thing. I now know that Terry could have at any time just come out and said to me in a personal conversation without Dixie on the phone, look, you know what's happening, or I try to tell Dixie, or I can't tell Dixie, or anything, much less actually stand up and say this shit didn't happen and put his name on it, right? He doesn't have to sacrifice his career, but he can at least tell me. But he wouldn't. He's a weasel. And the only two that I'm mad at, actually, I was still a little warm at Jeff. But otherwise, it was Terry Taylor and our friend Vince Russo. And I say, you know what? I bet I could write something right now that would tell me either Terry might get some entertainment out of this if he don't like the son of a bitch by this point now either, or elsewise he might go, whew, boy, Cornette hates that son of a bitch or whatever. But I bet you he'll fucking tell him. He might even show it to him. And this is a way that I can just ruin, because I know Russo, I can just ruin his fucking day. And maybe several days in the future if he starts thinking about it again, right? So this was, since I had some time, this was what I decided to do. And Brian, have you ever done something where you write somebody you're mad at, but you're nice to them? So, because if I started saying, hey, Terry, you know what? You were a weasel. Well, then he's not going to read the rest of it. But if I said, Terry, I always was like you. I always liked you. We've known each other so long, but here's this other sumbit. Then he'll be into it, right? You see where I'm going with this?
I get it.
And also, it's the old thing that I learned from Jerry Jarrett. If you're going to try to work somebody, make it as believable as you can. Tell them as much as you can that is they know to be true, so that when you're working them a little bit, they really can't tell the difference instead of just making some bullshit up out of your ass, right? So I decided really I can tell pretty much the truth here and just fib that I have no ill will toward Terry. Everything else I can fucking have loose at, and I'll really fucking be behind it. So anyway, would you like me to go through this thing? Because this, and it was on my website all those years ago, the first one I had, but I've gone through some websites. So I'm thinking this may be new to some people.
So this is the famous Stooge test email.
Yes. You are correct, sir. Terry, I was going through and deleting a bunch of old emails and found this last one from you. I don't mean to stir anything up, but I felt like I had to write and get some things off my chest. I've always liked you, and we've never had a problem. I'm sure you've heard some of my many commentaries on TNA, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that I wish you no ill will, nor do I wish anyone in TNA ill, including talent, TV crew, and office staff. If the incident hadn't happened when it did, I would have quit anyway a month later when the news broke that Hogan and Bischoff were taking over. The only reason I was ever there was I thought that TNA would be the promotion to keep Vince from having a monopoly and be an alternative to this bullshit sports entertainment. Obviously, with the new regime, that is not in the plans. But taking that out of the equation, I was glad I worked for TNA. It's just frustrating and disappointing to me. It couldn't have turned out better. If not for one thing, I could move on with no hard feelings, but that one thing is big and is in danger of consuming my life if I don't just come out and say it. You know what? This sounds like one of those fucking promos that the kids on AEW come up with, doesn't it? Hey, he bought it. Back to the email. I will say it because I'm trying to quell the burning in my heart. I hate Vince Russo. I despise Vince Russo. I want Vince Russo to die. If I could figure out a way to murder him without going to prison, I would consider it the greatest accomplishment of my life. See, now you can put passion behind things you really believe. I hate him for the money he's cost me. I hate him for what he's done to the business. I hate him for keeping TNA from being competitive to WWE. I hate him for the careers, even the lives he's ruined with his shitty booking and the irreparable damage he's done to every promotion he's been involved with. I regularly wake up from dreams in which I am in the act of murdering him. No, see, I'm working now. Not regularly. It has happened. Stace will tell you for about that period of time, it happened a couple times, but I can't say regular. I literally burn whenever I think of him. I've sworn to myself that I will willingly go to jail if I ever see him in person again, and he had better pray to his fictitious invisible man in the sky that day never comes. It actually never has, so this may in part have worked. I intend to make it my life's work and mission to fuck with him and anything he has ever had anything to do with in a wrestling business. Why am I writing you this? One, I got the irresistible urge to explain to you the depth of my abhorrence for this abominable prick.
What a sentence. Oh, my God. Wow. Wow.
Oh, goddamn, I'm hurting myself now. Oh, and then now I'm going to start baby-facing again. And two, I want to make sure that you and anyone you care to share this with knows that I truly and genuinely wanted TNA to succeed and liked working with all of you. I'm no longer a supporter of TNA as a company. I hope it goes under quickly and painfully because of this. Because of of the stupidity Dixie has exhibited in employing Russo. And apparently I'll see my wishes come true with this new direction, but I really did want to see it succeed. I still like everyone there. I'm only mad at a few people. Jeff for talking me into coexisting with that miserable waste of human flesh for 3 years to the point where I have trouble looking at myself in the mirror and not a day goes by that I'm not ashamed of myself for abandoning every principle I ever had and speaking to the motherfucker. and Dixie, not just for employing that useless twat, but for lying to me about the reasons for my firing and lying about me, letting some Russo stooge spread rumors I was fired for acting unprofessionally toward him, then not putting her name on the retraction while knowing it wasn't true. I mean, you might talk to Dixie every once in a while. Otherwise, I like everyone there. And I wish their hard work could be rewarded and they could all make millions, but they won't. Because of a lack of competence and judgment in their leadership. I will never again have to occupy the same arena or even city with Vince fucking Russo, but I still feel bad for everyone else who has labored long and hard in vain because of what he's done to the company's chances. I like you, I like TNA and West and Keith Mitchell and Dave Sahadi and Bob Ryder and the talent and the crew, even Pinzer. And I...
See, now he had to know you were lying. Now, why did he know it was a work now?
No, because me and Pinzer used to fucking joust and have fun, right? And I don't want you or any of them to take it personally when I verbally roast TNA every chance I get. But as far as I'm concerned, Jeff should have way known better than to hire that asshole. Now I know actually he did. And Dixie, as clueless as she may be about wrestling, should have been more careful in whom she entrusted her father's money and more perceptive when it came to spotting imbeciles. I wish you all good luck. I'm sorry if anything I say or do causes you any problems. I hope one day I'd be in charge of a wrestling company with the funds to hire all of you. But here you go. But just so you know, I will fuck with any company Vince Russo is involved with until I draw my last breath. And if there is an afterlife, I would return to haunt his miserable ass. Either that or I'll will myself to live long enough to piss on his fucking tombstone. And hey, hatred is a hell of a motivator.
Amazing.
And so
amazing.
I'm thinking, you know, I can do this, and either Terry will see it and and move on about his day, and you know that'll be the end of it, or he might show it to the son of a bitch, right? And that will ruin his mood for sure. And I can because see, I remember in 2000 and. What was it? 2000. It had to be 2000. It couldn't have been 2001 because WCW was out of business and he had been fired before that. In 2000, Kevin Kelly and Bruce Pritchard were down here at an OVW show looking at the developmental talent. And I'm driving them to the airport and they had just been in Atlanta for a taping or whatever. And they say, yeah, you would believe Russo texted us, hey guys. See, you're going to be in town. Like he fucking walked off and said, fuck you to them too, basically, without a word when he left. So I said, you got that fucking guy's number? Because they got the cell phones. Now, this is 2000. They were up on all the big devices. We're in the car. You got that motherfucker's number? I think it was Bruce's phone. It might have been Kevin Kelly's, but nobody was trying to wrest it away from me. They called him, and when he answered, I started telling him what I'd always wanted to fucking tell him, but I thought of him, that everybody was always, don't do that while we work together. And then somehow he's never where I ever see him after I no longer work with him, right? So I started telling him and he fucking, I don't know at what point he hung up on me, but it was like, you miserable backstabbing son of a bitch. I've always wanted to tell you what a no good cocksucker you are, et cetera, et cetera. So then by the time that Bruce and Kevin got back to Stamford, the next day he had called human relations in the, not human, human resources. Yeah. So, well, you never know up there in the WWE. It called and stooged on because he had to caller ID whoever's fucking phone it was and saying that I had threatened his family and was going to, hurt his children or some shit, and tried to get them in trouble for handing me the fucking phone when he was working in WCW. Anyway, so that's why I said, okay, this, and I knew once if he got to see it, he couldn't stop reading, right? It's Russo. It's about him. He has to see. He would be absorbed, and he would absorb every bit of this. So when I didn't hear anything about it this was March the 20th, I sent that. And then this next letter is dated April 9th, but it came in a Federal Express gimmick. So I guess probably April 10th is when I got it. But it's from Davis, Shapiro, Lewitt, and Hayes, LLP of New York and Beverly Hills. Was this the one that I looked them up and they were entertainment lawyers? Because one time they sent me something legal and they were entertainment lawyers.
Of course they are.
I don't know. Huh?
That would have been my first guess that it's just some entertainment lawyer, but yeah.
Well, because Dixie knew some of these people in her public relations business. Anyway, this was via certified mail, it says up at the top. Return receipt requested. I had to sign for this. It was worth every penny of it. Well, it didn't cost me a penny, but it was worth every piece of ink of it. So I open this thing up, and there's two documents. There's a printout of the email that I sent to Terry Taylor, but it's not a printout of the email that I sent to Terry Taylor from him. It's original message from Terry Taylor to Vince Russo, where he had forwarded it to Vince Russo. So I sent that at midnight on Saturday or whatever, and Monday at midnight, March 22nd, 2010, he had forwarded the whole thing to Vince Russo. Oh my God. So that worked perfectly, but never did I believe in a million years that it would get even better than that, because the letter from the attorney said, would you like to hear this?
Oh, yeah.
The subject is email threats communicated to Terry Taylor on March 19, 2010. Mr. Cornette, this firm represents TNA Entertainment, LLC. TNA has recently intercepted a shocking and appalling email communication, a copy of which is enclosed, which was sent from your email address to the attention of TNA's talent coordinator, Terry Taylor, at his TNA email address. Upon review of the content of said email, TNA was so concerned that they have turned the email over to this firm to take appropriate action in order to protect the safety and welfare of TNA's staff and talent. Your email reads in part, and this is where I hate him. I want him to die. If I could figure out a way to murder him, I wake up dreams. You better pray I never see him again. It is our view that the foregoing statements constitute terroristic threats under virtually every jurisdiction in the country, including the U.S. Code 18 USC squiggle mark 875 and Kentucky State Law KRS 508.080. Generally, under both federal and state law, a person will be guilty of having made terroristic threats if such person willfully threatens to commit a crime which would result in death or great bodily injury to the victim and demonstrates specific intent to communicate such threat to the victim or to a third party who the perpetrator believes will convey such threat to the intended victim. Apparently, I didn't even think of this fucking idea. They've already had enough of it going on. They've had to write it down. Your email satisfies all of the foregoing elements, and it is irrelevant whether you intended to actually carry out such threat or not. Nonetheless, we must assume the worst. Indeed, the language of the email is so specific, unequivocal, and unconditional. I always strive for clarity, Brian. So specific, unequivocal, and unconditional that Vince Russo, a TNA employee, has understandably experienced extreme fear for himself and his family. See, it's on paper. TNA management shares his concern not only for Vince, but for all of its employees, staff members, and talent, some of whom were specifically named in your email as being targets of your anger.
Who was that?
I said, I'm also kind of mad at Jeff for employing the dipshit. And well, Dixie should have known better.
Oh, give me a break.
Yeah. Oh, wait, give me, hold on here. Accordingly, be advised that we have taken action to notify all applicable federal and state law enforcement agencies and have provided them with a copy of the email together with your personal information, including your home address, social security number, and other pertinent information which would facilitate their efforts to investigate any violent acts taken against TNA employees, staff members, talent, or any of their property. Any further threats or similar attempts to contact Vince Russo or any other TNA personnel, directly or indirectly, shall be viewed as acts in furtherance of such threats and shall be pursued and prosecuted accordingly. He is regularly taking out paperwork so that I won't cut a promo on him somewhere. On a related note, and now listen to this, but now after okay, you're a fucking terrorist and we've reported you to the federal government, right? Listen to what they're going to hit me with next. They saved the big one for last. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
On a related note, it is our understanding that you were recently employed by TNA as an independent contractor and talent, and as such, you had access to confidential proprietary business information relating to TNA. Your email contained certain statements which discussed internal TNA management decisions and the circumstances surrounding your departure from TNA. Those matters constitute confidential information. Like the story that I've been telling of how I got shafted, right? Accordingly, we are taking this opportunity to remind you that the confidential information is proprietary and is not to be revealed except as expressly permitted by TNA in writing. As a former talent of TNA, you continue to be bound by your legal obligations and duties to maintain the confidentiality of such confidential information. In accordance with the terms of your various talent agreements, you cannot share confidential information with anyone, in capitals, anyone, including current or former TNA talent, and TNA will vigorously enforce its rights in this regard. Sincerely, Guy S. Blake, Esquire. They sent copies to Dixie Carter, Dean Broadhead of TNA, Steve Campbell, Esquire, which means he's a lawyer, Vince Russo, and Terry Taylor. And they also, because I was working for Ring of Honor, and so they sent copies to Kerry Silken and the lawyers that represented HDNet. See if they get me fired up there for stirring something up. So, Brian, I ain't no big time legal mind. I'm just a small town bird lawyer. And by the wording of this, being reported to the federal government, and especially the confidentiality of the confidential stuff that I was confidentially not supposed to confide in. That was some troubling verbiage, right, of what they could do to me.
Sounds like you're in trouble. Yeah. Big trouble.
So you would think if I was you or you were me, or however this applies to this fucking statement, you'd want a second opinion, right?
I think so, probably, yes.
Well, so I wanted more than one. So what I did was I took the letter, the email that I sent to Terry Taylor, verbatim, exactly what they were upset about. And then I took their letter to me, talking about the reporting me to the government and that I'm not supposed to talk to anybody about anything. And I got a bunch of opinions. I put them both verbatim, word for word, on my fucking website and started fucking telling people, if you want to see this exchange, go there and read it. And then, and I believe there was a caption above it says, "Hey, TNA, here's what I think about your fucking confidentiality." And then, if he hadn't written me, well, he didn't write me back, but if Terry had not sent this to Russo, and Russo hadn't gone squealing like a little dickless bitch like he always does, And then Dixie, being a goddamn mark to begin with, actually, how long you think it took a lawyer to come up with that letter? I'd say she paid for 2 hours. So this cost her, hold on, New York and Beverly Hills. This cost her almost $1,000 to have sent to me. That fucking goofy twat. And they all did this. And then I was able to have a reason to say, okay, fuck you again, and put it all up on the internet so everybody in public could see exactly what I thought of Russo, and he was embarrassed again. Instead of just being burned up and pissed off and scared in his own fucking home at midnight from an email that his Stooge buddy sent him, he pitched a further bitch and got embarrassed in front of the fucking world. And guess how many letters I got about the confidentiality after I put that on the goddamn website?
Letters from their lawyer? How many?
Letters from anybody related to him. I'm still waiting for the first one. Because Dutch Mantell went in the office. Dutch did tell me afterwards one time. He said, he went in the office and said, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? See, he said, you didn't just, he said, none of you just thought, just leave that alone. He really did. He said, none of you just thought to leave that alone. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? It's Jimmy. But anyway,
so you weren't really, I mean, it's a Stooge test, but I guess the point of the Stooge test, to go back to that, was you weren't actually surprised that Terry Taylor was a Stooge in this situation.
No, I was thinking that there was a good chance that if I laid it on thick enough and poured it out, that he probably wouldn't be able to resist showing it to Russo, who probably would then, it would, as I said, ruin his day or his night or his mood or what, it just make him unhappy. Which is, been my fucking hobby for years and years. I knew that way he'd have to fucking, he can't hang up on me. He can't interrupt me. But bro. He can't stop reading because it's about him. So he would get a comprehensive summation of what the fuck I think about him as a human being, thanks to his good friend Terry Taylor. But the lawyers and the rest of it, that was just icing. That was fucking great.
And this is years before the restraining order, which also was available on the website.
Well, yes. And he raised, what was it? How many thousands of dollars was it for the Crusade for Children with that? Well, I raised it, but it was the only thing he ever wrote to Drew Money. But yeah, that was because he had to go and open his yap on the internet about something else and try to get creative, and thinks he's a writer. And so I cut a promo on him that was accompanied by a little Stooge test that I gave to somebody else that I used to know and associate with, and they did what I thought they were going to do. And as a result, he was fucking crying and shaking like a dog shitting peach seeds and going to goddamn court again because I cut a promo on him on a podcast and it scared him because I'm good at what I do. But yeah, don't anybody think that it's a gimmick that I'm working with the way I feel about him. But I have in the past worked other people to fucking make him as uncomfortable as possible because he's a goddamn mark and an idiot too.
Hey, quick question, because obviously we're at the end of your run here in TNA. We're past that point, actually.
But actually, I found pre-existing paperwork from earlier in the previous 3 years. So we'll just go in the Wayback Machine sometime and we'll jump into that too.
Well, I was just curious in terms of other things for the future. Are there any, or was there much back and forth in email between you and Greg the office boy, or any Ring of Honor stuff we could eventually get on here?
Yeah, there is Ring of Honor paperwork. Any email communication directly between me and Greg the office boy is terse, short, to the point, something about somebody's expenses, possibly mine. And not in any way pithy, but some of the things I have written to other, because I didn't like to speak to him, much less fucking get a writing back and forth with the fucking guy. But there's some documents of some of the other shit going on. And again, that's, hate to say it, but that's why I had to bid adieu in my life to gutless Gary Jester because he bailed on me. It wasn't quite as weaselly as Terry, but when everybody in the company hated the fucking guy, including me, and Charlie Haas was going to knock him out, and fucking everybody else was like, this fucking guy. But everybody was scared because he was Joe Koff's handpicked accounting fellow that nobody would fucking say anything except me. And so finally, I said, Gary, you as an even more grown adult man, he's 10 years older than me and is 15 years ago, whatever. We need to both go and tell Joe Koff as another grown adult man that this little 26-year-old hatchet-headed fucking prick is pissing everybody off. And somebody one of these days, possibly me, is going to grab him around the fucking throat unless he tells him as a senior executive to a little dipshit to quit the attitude, stop being a know-it-all, stop talking down to people, and don't tell everybody what to fucking do like he's goddamn Napoleon. And Gary was like, he's his boy. It's okay. It'll be all right. Well, and then that's the first thing I said to Gary after I was at the back of the building that night when Mark Davis, the fucking head of Sinclair Productions, said, watch out, don't say anything around. And he's pointing at a guy. That guy, he's a stooge. He works at the office. He'll tell everybody what you say. Good. I started screaming, I'm going to choke Greg Gilliland. I will drag his carcass across the front parking lot of the station. And I told Gary, I said, now, months I've been saying, let's just go and have a fucking conversation. And instead, there you go. Now y'all can take care of this thing.
Well, as Jim said, in the future, we have more segments about bad executives and bad decisions and lots of emails and correspondence to go through.
Correspondence to come. And if those correspondents don't come, then they'll go and we'll get some more who will. But I'll tell you what, folks, you don't know anymore about whether you just don't know anymore. You just don't know for sure what's going on. It extends to the food, Brian, that you eat. And we've got a new friend that can help you out that honestly, I'm amazed by. You know me, I don't know about some of the modern technology. I don't know that these things exist, but Stacy jumped right on it. Our friends over at Chef IQ and the Chef IQ Sense. The sense, because it gives you not only a sense, but a sensor that goes into whatever you're cooking. And I hesitate to say that it's a meat thermometer because that sounds too mundane and ordinary. Again, Brian, you know me and everybody else does too with the highfalutin interweb witchery and things. But as soon as I take this thing out of the box and I see that it talks to your phone, I say, Stace. And she comes in and starts doing cartwheels and round-offs and actually almost did a moonsault off the top of the kitchen stove. Because this thing, you know, Brian, are you a good barbecuer? D, come on, admit it. Are you? Every man wants to say they're a great barbecuer, but are you really a good barbecue? Or do you get distracted sometimes? Or you can't tell if you're using charcoal, what the heat is, or if you're using the propane, it might get too fucking hot.
I mean, you're talking me out of it.
Alcohol might be involved and you forget to check. And then, or somebody says, well, Sam, just cut that thing. Just cut it in the middle and see if no, it's not done. It needs more time. Well, then you check it 2 or 3 times when you've tortured the goddamn cow to death. But if you don't check it, then you're going to end up with anything between meh and shoe sole. So what the Chef IQ Sense gimmick does is whether it's steaks or chicken or fish, or whether you're grilling or whether you're in the oven of the stove, or whether you want well done or medium rare or whatever, you stick this thing in there and you put it on the grill or you put it in the oven or you stick it, I don't know, up a goose's ass. I don't know, wherever you're going to cook this thing.
Not there.
And when it's ready, it calls your phone. And just, hey, your shit's done. So you don't have to check and you don't have to guess and you don't have to poke it or cut it. And, I don't know how it works, but again, I think you said Suzanne was just over the moon about it.
Yeah, when it got here, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then she's like, oh my God. And she started really raving about it. She downloaded the app right away. And yeah, we're using it. She loves it. She thinks it's amazing. And I'm sure when I run the grill over the weekend, I may feel the same.
Well, you need to have her stick it in, and then you can grill from there. Because I don't understand how how does it not melt? It stands up to like 1,000 degrees. What the fuck how does it stand up to 1,000 degrees?
Well, that's proprietary information. We can't give that
again,
out.
How is the signal that it's a small thing. There's a few of them, the skewers of things, depending on what you're doing. But it looks like a ballpoint pen, and you stick it in, and it from the inside of the oven, it calls your phone. How does the signal go through? Are they in the walls, Brian?
They're not in the walls. Again, there's a lot with technology you may not necessarily understand. We're talking infrared. We're talking Wi-Fi. There's lots of ways, CB band. There's lots of ways to communicate. And of course, this wonderful product, this sensor, will communicate with your phone. And it's great. You don't have to hang around the grill. You don't have to singe your eyebrows. You could just go off and have a fun time until the meat is ready.
Well, yeah, the humidity now, it's a goddamn tropical rainforest out there. And without the rain, and you don't want to stand over the grill with the smoke in the face and everything. So you stick it in, you put it on, and boom, and you go inside the house and watch TV, and then it calls you. Anyway, it's amazing. And there is, again, a couple of different applicators or whatever, thermometers for the various things, and it works for everything, and it's got all of the instruction. I couldn't even open the box. The box started blinking. Holy, this is some high-tech shit. I'll tell you what, don't think you can get away with like carrying this through the fucking airport. I would think this has to be
let's not make any declarations about any travel situations with this fine Chef IQ sensor.
Klingon hypodermic needles. Shit, they could, maybe Bones is giving shots
once
with
again,
these things.
You can cook smarter with IQ Sense. You can find out exactly what your meat's temperature is. They have different sensors on the actual thing, so you get different how hot is it here versus how hot is it here. It's great.
And how about here? And you know what? There's a special little hammer that you can hit your steak and like on the knee at the doctor's office and conduct a reflex to see if it's
there is no such thing, but this is a great deal. One of those great deals we get for the listeners. It's barbecue season. Jim, how can the listeners get this wonderful product at a great price?
Well, remember, they're new friends of ours, so you may not be familiar, so I will say it a couple of different times so you have a chance to write it down with your pen and paper at home. Chef IQ, CHEF, Chef IQ, can't fucking spell that, chefiq.com. That's where you're going to see all about this amazing thing that will keep you from frying your face in the summertime and burning your roast to a crisp in the wintertime. chefiq.com. The promo code is JCE, and you're going to get 15% off. It's a flash sale. And that doesn't mean it's going to flame up and engulf you in some type of purgatory.
It does not mean that.
It's a flash that they're putting it on sale right now, just in a flash.
Right,
and you're going to get 15% off right now. Act quickly. Chef IQ and bang your head on the table. chefiq.com. Promo code JCE. chefiq.com. Promo code JCE. Well, this thing is prettier than a speckled pup. And again, I think you can also use it as a communicator to a starship. This thing is some high-tech bullshit going on here.
Well, once again, it's barbecue season, but we cook all year round. Take the guessing out of the equation. Find out exactly.
I wonder if you can take a duck's rectal temperature with this thing.
Once again, not rectal, but it is directal to your phone, and you will find out exactly what's happening. ChefIQ.com, promo code JCE.